What is Git? Git is a version control system. Now that's fancy, but what does it actually do? Git keeps track of all the changes made to files in a directory on your computer. And those changes can be saved in save slots that we call commits. And over time, we can reload those commits and say, hey, let's load up an old save from a week ago. I'm going to give you a couple examples right now that kind of use the same format of a version control system, but you might be more familiar with. Here we have a website, Wikipedia. Almost everybody's been to Wikipedia in life. And I have a Wikipedia page open on Grace Hopper. If you want to look into Grace Hopper, very important for computer science and history. But this is a version control system in its own way. If you didn't know, Wikipedia edited by regular people, and anybody can go on here and edit the page. You can just go to a new page and edit as long as you're logged in, and you'll be able to actually get to the edit page. You can log in and do whatever you want to. And as you edit it, then there's going to be this new save what you've done. And maybe what you did was good. Maybe everybody loves it. They say, yep, that's what we want. Or maybe what you did was malicious. You did something bad to Wikipedia. Well, someone could reload the old version of it. And so in Wikipedia, you can view the history of any page. I'm not even logged in. I can view the history of any page, and I can see all the old saves of this page and what's happened. And you're allowed to compare any two versions. So for example, this one was modified on July 28th, and I can compare the differences. And so someone attempted to write this little phrase into the line 1, and I think it was probably reverted because that was probably a bad thing. See, it was reverted back. So someone reloaded an old version of that save, so they rolled it back. So this is an example of a version control system. Very handy because when you have any number of people working on a website like a Wikipedia, then potentially either the information is wrong or it's not worded very well and we'd like to pull it back out. We can go to all different versions of it. A different one that might be useful is Google Docs. So I have open a old Google Doc for me. And so this was a time that I was writing some definitions for words that are being used in the backend development program here. And so it's writing through all these definitions. But Google Docs itself is another shared resource where I'm working potentially with other people trying to modify this, and it's able to keep track of all the edits. So you can actually look through all of the edits of this version and who did it and what time frame they did it. And so I can actually switch back and forth between them and see what were the changes going on. This is what Git does for you as well, but Git is more designed for code. So let me switch to one more time frame here. Here is a sort of random GitHub page. If you know what GitHub is, it's the place we store our local Git repositories onto an online form. It's one of the places we could store them. So think of it in my mind as like a YouTube. We make and edit our own videos on our own local computer. That's where we're using Git to make all these saves and everything else. But we upload them to something like YouTube to actually store it. GitHub lets you store the projects. So this particular repo is called 30 Seconds of Code. And inside of it, they have a full repository of someone who's working on actual code. And when you're working on code, you absolutely want multiple versions of that code. So that if something happens, you can always revert to an old one. You also want to have these multiple timelines, which are eventually called branches. It's a little beyond our initial scope, but when you look further into Git, you start realizing there's a lot more information inside of it. So we want to make certain that we have the ability to load up old versions of our code in case we break something or we want to see what happened. But just the idea that we can save snapshots of our code over time and then reload old versions is really one of the heart of Git. We're just saving the changes. We're not saving every single file, just the changes. And that's what Git really is. Now, let's go ahead and get it set up on your computer.